speaking of equations, you have some
So
equations
this
on
is the
10 and
general
11.
equation that describe what power laws are, right? So
While you're going through the mathematics of this, I think it would also be useful, so we don't get too mired in pure mathematics.
Yes.
Describing some of the stuff that Jeffrey West lays out in this book, where he describes like the number of heartbeats per organism is basically the same across all, mice to elephants.
Yes.
But the mouse's heartbeat is faster, therefore its life is shorter.
Yeah.
So like these relationships hold in a lot of domains. So something to bring it back to earth here.
Exactly. So in general, what does it mean, right? When you have a power law, it means that you have a relationship of this kind, right? Where you have a y equal x, right? And that a is some kind of proportionality quantity, and then to the power. In the case of Bitcoin, I say 666, but it's really 5.83 if you measure, because never is perfect exactly, like round numbers, but very close to 6. And then you have this 10 to the minus 17. Why is 10 to the minus 17? Because basically, if it's really, you can use this equation for Bitcoin where you can say, hey, give me the number of days from when Bitcoin was created. I will give you a reference price. It's kind of like the fair price for Bitcoin. And you can say, well, what was the price at day one, right? So 1 to the power of kind of 6, right? 1 times 1 times 1 is 1, right? And then you multiply by that very small number, 10 to the minus 17 is 0 with 16 zeros, 1. So basically Bitcoin was like nothing, right? It was almost nothing.
Yeah.
And then you can say, okay, well, all right, how much time did it take for the price to be $1, right? So you can also answer the question, like you can try to plug in their days until basically you get 1. It turns out to be 880 days. So if you plug in that equation, 880 days, you get $1. Now, if you go and look at when Bitcoin really became $1, it was February 11, 2011. So it took about 915 days, something like that. So the equations say 880 days. The real Bitcoin took 915.
Wow.
And so you can try with $100, $1,000. You always are within few weeks, a few months.
This is begging the question, right? When do we hit $1 million?
Right. And today, for example, if you put 5,500 days, right now we are, right, you get something like 65. Because right now we are really touching that straight line at the moment. Since February, we are hovering around the power law. So the price is really tracking the real price right now. This equation tracks. Now, to answer your question, when we are going to hit $1 million, it turns out to be 2033.
2033.
Okay. And in general, you can also think in this way, right? Remember, we say if we double the time, it's going to be 65 times. So let's double the time of existence of Bitcoin, which is 15 years. So if you go all the way to 15 years in the future, that will be 2040, right? We are talking about 65 times. So if it is about 65,000 right now, so $4.5 million, something like that. So in 15 years from now, will be about $4.5 million. Now, at the conference, Saylor show all these possible scenarios in 45, and you had like the bear case scenario, you had the bull case scenario. The middle one was $13 million for Bitcoin in 45. This equation says $10 million. So very close.
Question about this. Does this take into account the diminishment of the US dollar purchasing power due to inflation? Is this this a constant dollars analysis, or are we talking in 2024 dollars when we say this?
So whatever value $10 million will be at that time.
Oh, okay. So this would be pre-inflation. So like $10 million in purchasing power of 2024 terms, but in the year 2030, that could be like $60 million.
No, the other way around. This equation tells you what will be the value of Bitcoin relatively to that time. So, for example, if it is 11 millions, it will be 11 millions of that year of 2045.
How can you...
Same thing with Sailor, when Sailor say...
How can you account for that, though? Because you don't know the rate at which dollars will be produced.
It's included in the equation in the sense that somehow the power law has worked all these years, including the inflation. Now, you could go around and say, okay, let me...
So it's looking backwards at inflation and extrapolating it forward.
Yeah, automatically. It's already included somehow in the power law. But you could do this and say, can I adjust it with M2, right? So can I use M2? Or can I use, you can, for example, say, okay, let me include 10% inflation rate, whatever inflation rate you want. And then what you get, you will still get the power law, but with a little bit less of a slope.
Sure.
In general, though, the idea is that it's not going to have a huge effect because we are talking about 65 times, right?
Sure,
so tell you, okay, Bitcoin will be 65 times. How many times inflation will be?
Well,
maybe a factor of 2.
When the inflation moves into the hyperinflation phase would be the answer to that, because then it's like 50% month over month.
Do you really believe in the hyperinflation? You think it's going to happen?
That's what's happened to every fiat up until now. Why would it not happen?
I think actually Bitcoin will be what doesn't make the US dollar going
by giving people a sound alternative.
With sound alternative.
But wouldn't that accelerate?
It's almost like a cooling mechanism.
But that would accelerate the hyperinflation, though, because you have people that can sell their dollars more quickly.
We need to study that. You know, I don't want to talk about stuff until I spend a lot of time studying it and understanding it. My intuition, just right now, it's my intuition. It is actually a stabilizing effect. But also we can use it to orange peel government, and because we are very scared. And what if we sell it? Say, look, actually, it's going to help with this. It's going, in particular, if we start to say, maybe we can pay back some of the debt using the Bitcoin gains and so on, right?
Yeah,
like some of the government wants to do. So it could be a stabilizing effect. My idea is that I would like to see Bitcoin being adopted without hyperinflation, because basically at a certain point, it will be clear that you are dealing with $100 trillion asset, right? And it cannot be ignored. And it's really clear that is, helping with the economy, helping with transaction, with different exchanges between nations, maybe even making them agree on the standard should be the dollar, the standard should be the yen. Well, what about something neutral like Bitcoin? So I think, my vision is that Bitcoin will win in that way. Like with the ETFs at a certain point say, we need to join this thing. BlackRock say, we need to join this thing. We cannot fight it. And so if it is hyperinflation, I'm just scared about what hyperinflation will mean.
It's certainly concerning, don't get me wrong. However, I guess I would take the opposite view, that the more clarity there is that Bitcoin is offering people these superior monetary properties, that people are going to switch more of their savings out of dollars into Bitcoin. And that would actually be an accelerant to a hyperinflation, because ultimately a hyperinflation would be, what is the rate at which people are selling dollars versus what is the rate people are selling Bitcoin, right? As that ratio grows, that would be more of a US dollar hyperinflation in Bitcoin terms, which is the same thing as saying Bitcoin price go to the moon, until the US dollar basically is not useful as a unit of account. So there's a lot of factors at play. The other thing, well, I don't know, because the other thing that comes to mind here were the bank runs, the digital bank runs recently, where, a couple of spooked phone calls, and all of a sudden the reserves of, was it Silicon Valley Bank? They were emptied overnight. So liquidity and information moves faster than ever. Right. So I would wonder how that plays into it as well.
Yeah, and I want to study that. That is my next stage, where I want to understand better how this fits with macroeconomy. Because right now, my approach was, I don't even want to touch everything else. I want to understand Bitcoin. I want to use all the internal information, like in an isolated system, because at first I want to understand Bitcoin internally. But now, recently, in fact, in my newsletter, I started to look at global liquidity and how it interacts with Bitcoin. So I want to expand, right? So as a scientist, I don't want to talk about stuff I didn't study enough and making just speculation. That is actually my modus operandi. I'm very disciplined about that. And admittedly, so I'm going to spend some time on that.
Admittedly, I am speculating right now. I'm just looking at the history of money and projecting what could happen.
And it's an hypothesis, but it's something that needs to be explored.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, click here to find more just like it. and here to find our most recent episode. Also, make sure to like this video to help shine light on the corruption of money, and be sure to subscribe to this channel to stay connected.